Welcome to issue 195 of Critical Encounters, a podcast about Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Here we take a good look at that most critical piece of the game, the encounter sets. We'll discuss those poorly understood characters, unfairly labeled villains, and their various plans to shape humanity and benefit the planet, as well as those so-called heroes intent on thwarting them. I'm one of your hosts, Will, aka Thunderball with the New York accent. Joining me is Daniel.
Hello, Will. Welcome to the lair.
Thank you, Daniel. How weird is it not doing the intro?
I only do it about a fourth of the time.
Well, there you go. And joining us is Steve.
Hey, Will, how's it going?
Doing great. Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, so folks may recognize Will's voice, otherwise known as Funky Monkey Monk, out there on the Discords. You have a strong affinity to Thunderball, at least version 2, after the retcon and the revamp with, during the Multiverse of Madness thing. So it's good to have you back on without that Thunderball thing going. So
it's good to be here, and I'm hopefully nothing will wrecker it.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you're here, Will, because to pay Mike back for his abandonment and his weird hiatus or whatever he's doing, Steve and I thought it'd be great to invite as many people as we could to hang out in his room for as long as they wanted and to mess stuff up, because he's pretty fastidious, if you know Mike. So thanks. Maybe you can sleep over tonight too and come back, or sleep here for the week, right? Steve, we need someone next week too, right?
Yeah, next week you might as well stick around.
Stick around.
Anything with his name on it in the fridge, it's open, free. Just take it. Yeah.
Yep. Feel free to pull things out of the dresser drawers. It's fine. It's your room now, Will.
Yeah.
Excellent. I've already been using his toothbrush, so that works out.
Good.
Well. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, Mike can't be with us tonight, and I think if he was here, Daniel, he would ask you a question.
Would he? What would he ask me?
I think he would ask what is on your mind tonight.
He would. He would do that.
So we should have Will do it then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't ask me. You are retracting.
I haven't asked you. I haven't asked you. I was just saying what I thought Mike would do. So maybe Will, you should do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Daniel, what is on your mind tonight?
Will, I'm glad you asked. Stars are on my mind tonight. How many, Steve? How many, Will?
I think it's going to be 5.
5 stars, because those are the only ones we read. All right. Here's the title of this one. This is a great title. If these guys are villains, I guess I'm bad.
Nice.
Okay. Well, here's what our writer has to say to us. It starts out maybe less than promising, Steve. I'll admit, when I first started playing this game, I tried listening to this podcast and couldn't get into it. Boy, you and 6 million others, except for the country of Chile. I liked the game a lot, but didn't care too much about the backstories for the villains. After playing the game for a few years now, though, I have gone deep into the Marvel Universe and come back to this show. I'm listening from the beginning, and I have to say this is the best Marvel Champions podcast out there. The hosts all genuinely seem to enjoy talking to each other and are effortlessly funny in their banter, skits, etc. It's also one of the only Marvel Champions podcasts that comes out on a regular schedule, an impressive feat for any podcaster. Listening to this podcast has just made me appreciate and love the game even more. Keep the episodes coming. And this comes to us from Jimmy Pops, from the US of the A. Thank you, Jimmy Pops.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, if we can't get them with quality, we'll get them with quantity. So we just keep putting them out there, right?
There you go. Nothing's healthier than being regular, Steve.
Mm-hmm. That's what my doctor tells me.
That's right.
Going number 2 can sometimes feel like you
pinched off a porcupine, wrestled out a wrecking ball, pushed through a pineapple or 2, tried to pass an elephant, rolled out a watermelon, strained until you turned a shade of ooh.
When pooping is painful, rely on doctor-recommended Colace to soften that stool and make it easier to go. For a number 2,
that's easy to do.
Just like my decks, consistency is king.
Absolutely. And I will say, Weekly, Steve, that's ambitious, and we've done it, and that's pretty good. I tried starting with that on a separate project of mine, and it's gone to maybe every other week now because it's just too hard. It's just too hard to write the script and to do it. So, yeah, it's amazing what you've done for 4 years, Steve, because you really are the pilot. We all know that.
Well, what it is we have been able to commit to showing up to record, and I think that's really it. No matter what our wives think about it, we are here recording.
That's right. And you're a good delegator. So it probably, we can spread the time across 3-4 people and sucker and guests on to do all the homework. That's been fantastic.
Did we sucker Will in to do the homework tonight?
No, I think Will might be just freeloading.
Oh,
Eating my stuff out of the fridge. But that reminds me, Steve, what are we doing tonight?
Oh, yeah. We're going to look at a scenario. Ooh, the second scenario, the Project Wideawake out of the Mutant Genesis box. Yeah, so we're going to start in with some lore. We're going to look at the first set of cards, and then we'll do our normal 2 parts, and this will be part 1. It looks like the notes say I'm supposed to do it, so I am prepared. We don't have to watch. So yeah.
We don't have to watch TV again? There's been some weird stuff on the telly late.
Yeah, not yet, but...
All right, good.
All right, well, I guess let's just get to it then, shall we?
Sure.
Okay, Project Wideawake. I have a few quotes about Project Wideawake I wanted to share with you guys. Okay. The United States would, quote, have to work sort of the dark side. He explained that the administration would, quote, spend time in the shadows because a lot of what needs to be done will have to be done quietly without any discussions. Okay. There could be no second guessing of the United States methods because its motives were pure. Every nation, every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
Wow.
All right, and another one here, third quote. The cost of overreaction would be low, especially when contrasted with the risks of underreaction, which would be catastrophic.
These are quotes about Project Wideawake, you said, Steve?
Well, they could be, but actually they aren't.
What?
These are quotes from former President George W. Bush and Vice President Cheney and their administration after the 9/11 attacks aimed at the war on terror against the Islamic people.
Wow.
So, hatred is nothing new. Hatred of the other is alive and well in the globe today. And look, I started, and I want to do this bit of like where we pretend we're going to talk about something and it's not really the thing we were going to talk about. So I started doing this research on the topic because I thought when I read about Project Wideawake, it mirrors and makes comments about real world racism, bigotry, and prejudices. Like that's the story of Project Wideawake. It's hatred
and that is
and
the
fear.
Intent. That is the intent of the comic story, correct?
Correct. That is what it's all about. So
okay.
I started to look at what the metaphors of Project Wideawake were mirroring in the real world. The U.S.'s reaction to 9/11. All those quotes could have been about Project Wideawake, but they're not, right?
Okay.
Hitler's rise to power and the Holocaust, the mass extermination of the Native American peoples in North America, the slave trade, the never-ending holy wars in the Middle East, right? Like, it was just too much for me to try to do this piece to kind of show what Project Wideawake does, because
as a symbol and a metaphor, it got heavy.
Yeah, and I know we're the villains. I know we're the villains, and it's fun to be a Marvel villain because a Marvel villain, attempts to take control of space sharks to invade the planet, right? With some all-powerful jewelry that would make Sauron jealous, right? But real-world villainy is another matter. So I started, and I can't go there. I just can't do it. So I can't pretend that it's okay to be a bigot or racist or hate any group of people. Iron Man might be a different story, but he's just one person. He's not a whole group of people. So I didn't want to go into that dark abyss. I just wanted to kind of look at the Marvel villains as presented to us. So,
but I agree with your decision to not get too real and to not go down this place. But I also think it's equally important to talk about, how comics really are artistic reflections and commentary on real world stuff. It's important to forget that and to see the stories that are intended to be that way. I mean, like the mutant stuff and all that we've learned about X-Men so far, like this is a big part of that, of the subtext of those stories. So bravo.
Right.
I applaud
Right.
you for considering that.
Yeah, because that really is the comment they're making.
Right.
And they're just telling it, with cartoons of guys who shoot lasers out of their eyes. Let's just talk about the Marvel version of the Project Wideawake then.
Okay.
Think about those issues as you hear this and see if our listeners can agree with what we've just said. So
yeah, consider the parallels, folks. Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in the 60s, now in the Marvel 60s. Okay.
Okay.
The U.S. government discovers that Blue Marvel, who is an ally in our game, who had been hailed as a hero for a whole long time, they discover, oh no, gasp, he's actually African American, and we can't have a hero who's black. So the government tells him, you have to stop being a hero, stop saving us, even though yesterday we were applauding your efforts.
Wow.
Now, he's not a mutant, but that fear triggers somebody named Bolivar Trask to bring up the point of these new emerging mutants that are also a threat out there, right? They're different. We can't control them. We don't know who they are. They don't look or act like us, so we need to stop them. And the government should be wide awake to the threat that mutants pose.
Now, you had talked about how this is in the Marvel 60s. When was this story written?
The 60s. Some point in the 60s. Like, yeah,
it
was.
So when you said it was like Marvel 60s, you meant like Marvel Comics writing. Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
I thought it was okay. Because
right.
I'm only familiar with this story from the 90s cartoon, which I think starts with this scenario, doesn't it? More or less. Or you'll get to that, I'm sure. But
yeah, the Marvel's cartoons does start with that, but the mutants are born in Marvel in the 60s, right? The X-Men come from then, and like you'll see more mutants in the 80s really come into their own. So maybe it was written in the 80s and their flashbacks. I couldn't get so
understood.
And Will, sorry to bring on a heavy show here.
No worries, man. I've been this was my life growing up, was watching these comics or watching these cartoons. And definitely shaped a lot of the way I saw the world and the parallels as I grew up and learned about them. Honestly, these cartoons prepared me for what I was going to see later on.
Well said.
Okay, so there's a 5-year study from a federal judge and a special counsel that's appointed, and Senator Kelly that we have already talked about, who, he has his biases. Also, there's Sebastian Shaw Industries, who has a great greed. So they're pushing their agenda. And then, so what we end up with is the Sentinel mutant hunting robots and the semi-illegal mandate created to just round them all up, right? We're gonna go get all the mutants with our Sentinel robots. And the pressures from all these different factors causes the president at the time to create the code-named Project Wideawake, governed by a whole bunch of, open-minded and kind folks out there.
The best kind.
The best kind. Yeah, that's sarcasm if you can't tell. Okay. But the commission, who's in charge of this, can't really agree on its overall purpose. So it ends up competing among itself a little bit. And it kind of comes up with, there's 3 avenues that different members are trying to push. So one group is saying, let's just recruit the mutants. They'll fight for America and we can dominate the globe and they'll be our weapons. Okay. There's another faction that's saying, let's round up all the mutants, but we'll use them like slaves as some sort of resource, right? We'll put them to work building things for us and doing what we want, but they will be forced against their will. And then the third group says, no, we'll just eliminate all the mutants in one big final solution and we'll be done with them. So there's parallel there. Mostly the commission ends up leaning into number 2. They said, we'll round them up and we'll just put them to work the way we want. It leans a little bit into 1 where, okay, we're going to use them to hunt other mutants. And there's a mutant Forge, who we do have in the game. Yeah. And he's like really super techno kind of guy. And he ends up making anti-mutant guns for the government to hunt other mutants with. And if you get hit with his gun, you lose your mutant powers. So he does that for a while, and the Project Wideawake is doing pretty good.
Steve, how do they convince mutants to go after mutants? Like, what's the carrot?
It's greed, I think. Some mutants, just like some people, are just evil, and they get a pass to go cause mayhem and fight other people.
But they're blind to the eventual end game that would most likely include them.
Right. Forge does eventually destroy his weapons that take out other mutants, and he destroys the blueprints, and that gun doesn't seem to be able to get made again. But he particular does. He has this little reform where he won't do that, but he still works for the government, rounding up mutants. Mystique, who we've talked about quite a bit, she ends up at a certain point leading a group of mutants called the Freedom Force, and they're a government-sanctioned organization to fight other mutants. Basically, they're just the Brotherhood of Evil Mutant members who get a pardon for their previous crimes if they go do this. Right? So there's some motivation.
Why not ask the good mutants to round up the bad ones first? Oh, I don't understand this at all.
And then there's Sebastian Shaw, who is a mutant himself, but nobody on this commission knows it. And he's the one building the Sentinels because he's making lots and lots of money. He works for the Hellfire Club as well, so there's clandestine motivations there. So his Sentinels go out, round up, or kill other mutants. The whole thing's really pretty clandestine. The agents, they have agents that spy on mutants, that track your privacy. They're tapping phones. They put agents spying on little kids who might be mutants. There's a bunch, the early comics, when some of the comics in the 80s about this, when you read it, they have, you have like two black suited guys that track some possible mutant kids who go to the mall, and they arrest them at the mall for just being at the mall, right?
Good thing this stuff only happens in fiction.
Right. Fiction only.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long the project is active. I couldn't seem to figure out when it ended, but it's active, and it seems at least it goes through into the 90s, which is where we've got our comic books and our cartoon and, all that sort of stuff. And the Sentinels exist beyond that. They reemerge. Sentinels come up and down, and there's tons of different versions, and we've talked about Zero Tolerance, and we've talked about the Sentinels in general, but Project Wideawake is this specific version of the Sentinels. So that's where we're at with Project Wideawake.
Wow. Steve, thank you for that. That was awesome. That was real. Yeah.
Jimmy Pop's like, oh, they're humor. Sorry.
Great day to read Jimmy Pop. Now, I'm sure Will and you and I will talk about this whole scenario next week. But we usually talk about sort of the foundational cards in the encounter set here, right?
Yeah. Which is
okay. Are we ready for that, Steve? Or is there more that you wanted to say? Or Will, did you have any thoughts or questions about the story?
So, I'll give you a actually moment.
Good.
Robert Kelly was introduced in Uncanny X-Men 135, which was published July 1980, according to Wikipedia.
Okay.
So this was incredibly timely to the events that were going on in the 80s, as does much of the later Civil War timeline as well. Marvel had a very strong set of writers who were writing to the times that they were experiencing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good. It's, art reflects life kind of thing. So, all right. Well, let's look at the cards, shall we?
Sure.
All right. So this scenario comes in the Mutant Genesis campaign box. It's scenario number 2. It uses the Zero Tolerance, and it suggests that you use the Sentinel set. 24 total cards, 9 encounter cards by title, plus the villain and main scheme. There's 4 player cards. Yuck. Ugh, you get allies. Gross.
Player cards.
I know, they give you player cards in the scenario. Hero bias. But tonight we're just going to look at the villain and the setup cards.
Okay.
All right, so let me read you about our villain in this scenario, which is just Sentinel. I think this is probably supposed to be sort of maybe like Sentinel 1, because we do not get a minion card that is Sentinel 1. We get 2 through 8. So Sentinel is a villain with a 2 scheme, 2 attack with the not surprising, Sentinel trait. It has toughness. When revealed, the first player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a copy of the Abduction Protocol's side scheme and reveals it. Shuffle. That one's just for you, Daniel.
Yep.
16 hit points per player.
Oh, that's chunky.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so version 2 is a 2-scheme, 3-attack, Sentinel traded, steady, and toughness.
Okay.
When revealed, the first player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a copy of Abduction Protocol side scheme and reveals it. Deal each other player a face-down encounter card, 18 hit points per player.
Steve, you forgot something.
Shuffle.
Shuffle before you deal the face card.
Oh, right. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Shuffle.
Very
first.
important.
And then Sentinel level 3 is a 3-scheme, 3-attack Sentinel trait with Stalwart and Toughness. When revealed, the first player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a copy of Abduction Protocol side scheme and reveals it. Shuffle. Deal each player a face down. Now this one is deal each player a face down encounter card, 22 hit points per player. So it definitely levels up, right? The numbers go up. It ends up with steady and stalwart. You always put out the side scheme. Level 2, everybody else gets an encounter card. And level 3, everybody gets an encounter card. So
expert is truly expert on this one. My goodness. Oof.
And 22 health, right? I mean, this version is a giant robot, right? It stands taller than a building. It adapts to different abilities. It shoots powers and laser beams, and right.
Yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah, they're no joke. So I think stat wise, they seem pretty good. So
yeah, I don't know how it schemes so well, but robots are smart, right? So
I'll say from my perspective, seeing the steady upgrade to stalwart, when I see steady, I'm already like not expecting stuns and confuses to do much. The stalwart's just the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen an even stronger upgrade there.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if lots of folks see steady and consider it stalwart essentially for what you need to be doing, right? I mean, I don't play very many decks that can double stun somebody. I don't even know if that's worth it. So that's an interesting point. Well, I like that.
It does change your tactics from level 1 to level 3. Like, if it doesn't have steady or stalwart, a good stun or confuse can definitely impact the villain.
Yep.
Adding that steady changes things quite a bit, and then maybe the stalwart's not as important. So, although it's good, they get to activate. You cannot. There's only a handful of cards that will prevent a stalwart character from activating.
Name 3, go.
Webbed up.
Okay.
Phased and confused.
Okay, good. Pheromones? Nope, that puts the cards on them, right?
It puts the cards on them. Yeah.
Right.
Venom's card.
The Venom Hero?
Yes, the Venom Hero.
So he has like a webbed up version or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah. Okay. That's 2.5.
Yeah. Now, Steve, you mentioned in every one of these cards something called Abduction Protocols, but I think we should go to the main scheme first, because that Abduction Protocols isn't the main, even though you said it over and over.
I agree. You should read the main scheme for us, both sides.
I will do so. So we've got the main scheme, Night of the Sentinels. Content, Sentinel 1 and 2, or Sentinel 2 and 3 for expert. Project Wideawake, 0 tolerance, and standard sets. 1 modular set, and as Steve said, it is recommended you play Sentinels. We'll talk about that at a later date, I imagine, Steve.
Sure.
And they all appear to be quite tall, by the way. Setup. Set each captive ally aside. Reveal the Operation 0 Tolerance and Mutants at the Mall size schemes. All right, so we'll definitely be talking about those later. Mm-hmm. So then you flip it over, and Steve, this is one of those. Is this one of those one schemers? It is, right? One main scheme.
It's not even a one schemer. Keep going.
Yeah, it's like you're not going to lose this way. All right. So anyway, Night of the Sentinels 1B is the main scheme. Operation 0 Tolerance gains permanent. Now, after threat is placed here, if there is at least 5 threat per player here, the first player places the top card of their deck face down under Operation 0 Tolerance, and then you remove 5 threat per player from the scheme. So if somehow you put 40 on in one turn, It's still only going down 20. And it starts with 1 per player and goes up 1 per player each round.
And it has
So
no
that's-
maximum.
No maximum. There's not it's not one of those scenarios where if the villain does their scheme, it's over for us. So that means there must be some other lose condition, Steve.
Yeah, well, let's talk a second. You mentioned Sentinel's scheme being kind of high. And I think that represents them searching and hunting for
Sure.
those mutants that are in hiding. Like it's in the picture, right? They're like scanning these houses.
I get it.
And that scheme does still add to the loss condition.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah.
Uh-oh. We have a
Rob?
wandering Took.
World.
Oh, jeez.
It's my room now.
Oh, I just popped in. I got my own room.
You
No.
had your own room.
You had your own room. I'm sorry.
We gave it to Will.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Well, it's great.
Did I make it in time for the obligation?
it's not one of those sets. Mike, I will say that you missed a great lore bit from Steve tonight.
Oh,
Very lovely, very real. But yeah,
Yeah.
Will's going to be in your room for like a week or two.
okay. All right.
Also, your toothbrush bristles are a little soft.
How's Spot World treating you?
Oh, there's so many corners to explore. It's going to be a while, guys.
Okay.
Understood.
Here, there, everywhere.
I just have zero tolerance for Mike popping in like this.
I know, right?
Oh, that's the set we're on. Okay, thank you. I was
Maybe-
looking for it.
Maybe we should abduct him and set up some protocols. And then
I think we should.
Yeah, we can keep him
We
trapped.
should.
Can't touch me. I'm behind an energy barrier.
Oh. Well, Will was just about to read a card. Should we let him read a card, or
Let's
do we
let
have
Will
to
read a card.
humor Mike some more? Jeez.
Yeah, we'll humor Mike, but Will, go ahead.
So this is Operation Zero Tolerance. It's a side scheme. Forced response: after an enemy attacks and defeats an ally, place that ally face down under the scheme. If there are X face down cards under this scheme, the players lose the game. X is 3 more than the number of players. This has 3 boost icons and a threat limit of 3 per player.
So there's our loss condition from the
There it
schemes,
is.
really, right?
There it is. And remember, this one has permanent, so
Right.
you can ignore the 3 threat per player.
Right. And the boost
Save your
icons don't
tokens.
matter in
Save
this.
your tokens. Yeah.
And I think my favorite part of this card specifically is that Operation Zero Tolerance, as you've already reviewed it, can fit into any villain set. I absolutely love seeing what other scenarios Operation Zero Tolerance can fit in well with.
Yeah, because it provides you that alternate loss condition.
I want to see this in Red Skull. Zero tolerance in Red Skull would be awesome.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last time too. We wished it would gain permanent the moment you drew it, but
Yes.
or if
we
it
did.
came out as an encounter card to you. Because you're probably not going to get 6 allies under that card while it's out. But all this has been hashed out before, I'm sure.
Yeah. So let's say we're playing a solo game here. Okay. So X on Zero Tolerance is 3 more than the number of players. So with 1 player. So if 4 cards are tucked under here, this card never goes away. There's no way to get rid of them. There's no way to rescue somebody tucked under Zero Tolerance. If you allow in a solo game 5 threat to go on the main scheme, you tuck a card under Operation Zero Tolerance. So if that happens 4 times, you
Boom.
lose. Or if you have to chump block with an ally, it goes under the scheme because Sentinel is a 2 or 3 attack plus a boost card, right? So you're trying not to lose through damage, and you're trying to not let cards get tucked under this. So a little bit like Collector. I don't think it's oppressive though. Like I think the Collector's better at it because he just takes everything, not just your dead allies.
Yeah.
I do really like that it also punishes the so-called heroes for the unheroic act of consistently chumping their allies.
Mm-hmm.
Like Maria
Yeah.
Hill, Will.
Squirrel Girl, anyone?
You invite me on your show to talk trash on my Maria Hill addiction. I resemble that remark, sir. I don't believe I've still killed her more than she's been killed canonically. Though. So
Okay. We're just trying to help you out, man. So,
Yep.
well, Mike, as long as you're here, we talked about this abduction protocol side scheme. Why don't you read that one for us?
Abduction protocols. There are 4 copies of this. It is a side scheme, 2 threat, hinder 2 per player, victory 2. It has a crisis icon and 2 boost icons. And it says, when defeated, the player who defeated the scheme takes 1 random set-aside captive ally and puts it into play under their control. Hey, wait, that's good.
Yeah. Hero bias.
Yeah.
And it's
blatant.
crisis, so you have to do it.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, you don't have to. You could just continue to let Knight of the Sentinel steal cards from the top of your deck.
Fair point. Pro tip, heroes.
Yeah, just let that happen. Every time you reveal a new version of Sentinel villain, one of these comes out. But they also exist in the deck, so you could get them just through regular gameplay. So you could see all 4 of them throughout a game.
I don't know that I've ever played a scenario of this where I didn't.
Recently, with Board Game Lawyer, we only had 3 of them appear. So,
Interesting, yeah.
yep.
Which, yeah, I mean, like you're guaranteed 2.
Yes.
Oh, I was going to say, they're also that card that when you're playing Justice and you're digging for a side scheme to reveal, you're looking for Abduction Protocol.
And that's a scenario-specific side scheme, so this is absolutely a good target for that if you're a cheaty hero.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
I think it's too good to them.
Yeah, I've averaged 3 of these in a game. If that's playing solo. I draw into 2 of them.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're gonna get one every time you level up the villain, and then you might just randomly get into one. So,
Yeah, that's what it is.
And we start with one in play. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's great.
And we'll talk next week about the escaped convicts that were under our control but get away. So we'll wait.
You mean
we'll wait till
the heroes?
yeah,
Whatever.
the captives. So, there's one more side scheme that starts the game in play. I guess it's my turn. Mutants at the Mall, and this is like classic X-Men cartoon, comic, the whole thing, right? So it is a side scheme. It has 4 threat on it with 1 boost. And it says, when defeated, the first player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a Sentinel minion and reveals it. Flip this card and put Jubilee into play, discarding any other version of Jubilee from play. It has an acceleration icon. It feels like a campaign card, but it is not a campaign card. It just is a card. So
Yep.
it's like a better version of Abduction Protocols for the heroes.
Well, the Sentinel minions all have like when revealed effects, right? So that's good.
Yeah, there's that. That's true.
And Jubilee is great, but like you never see her. Do you see her again in the campaign? I forget.
Oh, yeah.
She's a different card, right?
It's the same card. You keep her as long as she's not defeated.
Okay.
But if she's defeated at all, you never see her again.
Yeah. Huh.
Do we have any other version of Jubilee? Just noting that text on the card. Are they future proofing, or do we actually have another Jubilee?
Wolverine's signature ally.
Right. Okay. I haven't played him.
But there is no Jubilee hero, which would be great.
Oh my goodness. Oh, they have to now.
Yeah.
Guys. Yeah, you're playing Jubilee. You're like, we can't do the mutants at the mall, guys. We're just gonna have to deal with the acceleration.
And then the Justice player is like, nah.
Nah.
You got to leave early? There we go.
You'd have to time it so that you flip into alter ego before this goes off.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Something like
Yeah,
that.
because your name would be Jubilee.
Yeah, depending on how they name the alter ego. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny.
Not like the Marvel Universe has any problems with multiple versions of Jubilee. And
Yeah.
consistently changing who that is.
Or, death.
True.
Well,
this is a pretty good start. These are interesting cards.
Yeah, I like that it is not a straight up scheme is just going to take you out. right?
Yep.
Like you could get an advance mid game that you just lose on in other scenarios. This one, it's gonna give you this interesting thing that happens, and you're gonna have to keep playing for it. So,
Yeah.
I don't think it's so far. I don't think it's super punishing. I mean, it's like this card is sort of the first version of Sentinel, and the other Sentinels, throughout the ages get bigger and better. So it seems on theme to me.
When I first played through this, it gave me the 1990s watching the cartoons feel.
Yeah.
Like I looked at the art and I remembered the hand drawn, art from the video or from the TV.
Yeah, I think Caleb would appreciate hearing that because we all know he's a huge X-Men fan, and he had to have been drawing from that. So, plus it's part of the comic series. It's part of the story. It's not just the cartoon right? Because it is supposed to be comics. We don't typically talk MCU and whatever, but it just has such a feel. We have to compare the two with the TV series. So.
Now, I will say, I just wish it could be a bit more difficult because it's hard to tweak the difficulty of this one up.
You don't think Expert does it enough, Will?
I don't.
I'm in agreement with you. I think Master Mold does it better.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, right? If you're still at the beginning of the campaign, I can see how they would want to make this slightly easier. Lure them in. Lure them just a little bit closer. Don't worry. You can take on Magneto.
Also, 3 attack, 3 scheme, stalwart, and toughness. Like, looking at Form 3, just looking at the thing or the characters they released with that set, Wolverine doesn't scare me. This doesn't scare Wolverine. And the 3 scheme and big Sentinels coming out doesn't bother Jean Grey, Phoenix, very much either. So I would love, as weird as it sounds, I'd love to see a little more mutant hate in this.
Yeah, well, maybe the encounter cards will give that to us, and we can talk about those next week.
Yeah.
I think we've probably talked about this, and we would normally go to the outro, but we're going to take a little detour. We're going to do a little side scheme here.
So how cool is it that Mike showed up for this?
Mike showed up for this. Yeah. So what we want to talk about is a little bit of Con of the Rings, just a few minutes. Folks that aren't interested in that, you can fast forward a little bit or just skip the end of the show. And I want to see what Mike went to Con of the Rings and Will went to Con of the Rings. So guys, tell us about Con of the Rings. Maybe tell us what it is and how much you missed that Daniel and I weren't there.
Oh, it wasn't the same without you guys. Not at all. Not at all. People were just kind of
it was actually more fun. Okay.
We were sitting there. Everyone was just kind of depressed. We were all like, why do we fly all the way out here? And then we all went home. It was really all. No, Con of the Rings is it's a convention from the Lord of the Rings community. There's a group down in Minneapolis that sets it up, and we go down to we call it the Game Center. It's the former Fantasy Flight Games Game Center, but it's now been privately sold. And we go in their rooms for 3 days and just play Lord of the Rings.
And Mike, it just tickles me that you say we go down to Minneapolis. Very few people in this country would say that.
They did have vegetables this year. That was awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is as opposed to 2 years ago where there was actually a lettuce shortage. Or that was last year, vegetable shortage. There wasn't any lettuce anywhere. No, it was a blast. We played some custom quests. We played some official quests with lots of fun little tweaks. They did a really good job of reinvigorating some of the older scenarios. It was just a blast to see all our friends again. I think Will probably feels the same way, and it was great seeing you, Will.
Yeah, it was great getting to getting an opportunity to play with all of the folks that, more often than not, we only meet in Discords or in chats. I know, Mike, you and I had played for a few years during the pandemic before I got to finally meet you. I believe it was at last year's Con of the Rings. It was the first time I met you.
Yes, it was.
So yeah, it's a great opportunity to meet those folks and see them that you'd never otherwise really get to see in person. Kind of like the upcoming Con of Heroes.
Good segue. I was going to say Con of Heroes sometime in May, right? 2024, I believe is the plan. It's still on. We haven't heard any official dates yet, but it is going to happen according to my spies. Same place, Game Center, right there across the parking lot from FFG. You might get to meet a game designer or maybe some members of your favorite Marvel Champions podcast. Because my hope is I can go to Con of Heroes. That's my goal.
Mine too. I've not been to one yet, and I really want to. And I feel like we should probably represent there.
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll get them to rebrand it Con of Villains, and I'm there. So
yeah.
I think you guys should just take it over. Like get a new banner made and tape it over top.
Come in with some flags. Yeah, I could do that. Let's do that.
Last year there was at least some representation of all of you as we were in fact playing the Critical Encounters set.
Nice.
Yeah, I yelled "Damn it, Daniel" many times.
Yeah, Steve made me a pretty tough one.
We're all pretty good at that. So
yeah. No.
All right. Con of Rings, if you're into Lord of the Rings, but Con of Heroes. So hopefully we see everybody there.
That'd be great. Great to meet everybody. Well, Mike's being here means I don't have to do the outro anymore.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I need some help. I need any suggestions you have on how to get the funk from Funky Monkey Monk out of my room. Email us at criticalencounterspod@gmail.com. We're Critical Encounters on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube or on Patreon by searching for Critical Encounters Podcast. And on Discord, we are Vardane, Bigfoot Wolf, Wandering Tube, and joining us tonight, the lovely Funky Monkey Monk. If you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. Sentinel, take us out.
Mutant detected. Initiate capture sequence.